Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cinderella CEO on Air, or as I like to call it, C2CEO on Air. And I'm so excited. As you know, I'm the host, Cary Broussard. If I've met you before, um, thanks for joining us again. And if this is your first time to listen to C2CEO on Air, we have a great program, and our goal is to champion the comeback plan. Really, the Cinderella story is the ultimate comeback story, and we bring you the stories of women and men who know what it's like to work their way up from a low point and come from a place where they make dreams come true for themselves and for others. Not everybody starts at a low point, but they certainly understand and value the fact that if you can work your way up and you can fail at something, which hopefully it doesn't happen often, but you can come back strong. Our journey started with the book From Cinderella to CEO, now published in 10 languages, and it's been updated and republished again in a second version. You can go to cinderellaceo.com/discovery / and you can either schedule a call with me to talk about what you're up to and how we could work together, or you can order the book that way. The Cinderella to CEO Awards also took place last year, which were very successful. And from that, we created a research platform and did leadership research that has come about to be extremely helpful in developing how we put our curriculum together, our coaching program, and our consulting together. And one of the main things that people told us from the 200 people we researched, that they wanted coaching and that they wanted to hear and network. They wanted to hear from CEOs and people who think like CEOs so that they could build additional relationships. And because of the additional relationship building that we've started so far with these podcasts, we have really reached across the country to find people and share with people their stories like we're doing today. And I want to introduce my guest and also my co-host for today. So with that, Adela Cepeda and Artura Taylor, are you ready to go?
Ready.
Welcome.
Yes, we are.
So
Thank you so very much.
It's great to have you both here. I'm going to give a brief intro on both of you. I've already warned you that my dog is misbehaving, so we may get some barking in the background. Right now, I'm trying to pet him really hard so he won't do anything weird. But with that, he may make an appearance, a barking appearance. So Adela Cepeda and I go back a ways, not too far. You know, we're still too young. We don't go back that far. But she is a corporate and public finance consultant and chair and founder of Angelis Investors. She pronounces that much better than I do. Angelis Investors is a nationwide group of Latino business executives who make angel investments in Latina-owned tech startups. She's on 4 boards. She serves on the BMO Financial Group Board, Mercer Pathway and UBS Funds Board, mutual fund boards. And then, of course, she chairs her 501c3 nonprofit. You may already know this about Adela, but she was, for the second year in a row, named to the 50 Most Powerful Latinas by the Association of Latino Professionals for America, which is a huge honor. Congratulations, Adela.
Thank you.
I mean, that's outstanding. And I was looking at all the others that you are your peers in that group, and it's a small group. 50 is not very many. But Google and Unilever, PepsiCo, Cisco, Accenture, UPS, and you know, you're in great company, and they are in great company with you. But you know that I know you through the Wyndham Board. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about investing in diversity and inclusion financially and mentally. We're going to come back to that. And then just so you know, I invited Artura Taylor to come with us, be part of the program today. She and I met when we were both part of Make Mine a Million competition, and she blew me away. we both made the finals, but she was like, wow, she's got it going on. And I'll give you a brief background on her. And then Artura, when it's time for you to come on and ask some questions, I want you to supplement anything I miss, and you as well, Adela.
Thank you.
Artura is a former executive with McDonald's Corporation. And when the recession hit in 2009, she took advice. I love this. You took advice from a friend to suit up and show up. That is great advice. You started Taylor Distribution Group at that point in 2009 with the vision to sell commodities to the government. And you really focused on securing commodity contracts. You analyzed, you pinpointed strategies to be more competitive, to win to secure the big contracts that were previously held by the largest manufacturers in the world. So you set your sights on the city of Dallas. First, you won big contracts, $1 million contracts from the city of Dallas. Then you went on to, I believe, SMU, Southern Methodist University. And now you have at least $15 million in government and private contracts that span life sciences, research and development, wastewater treatment, higher ed, and pharmaceuticals. And so I felt like you would be a great co-host with me, because we're talking about angel investing. And we're straddling really the corporate world and the entrepreneurial world. So with that, I thought, wouldn't it be great to start with Adela's story, her Cinderella story? Adela, I know you're going to let me put you on the spot, but can you just start with giving us a little bit about yourself and your story?
Oh, thanks so much, Cary. Such an honor to be here with you. And I still appreciate everything that you did to advance women and Women on Their Way project over at Wyndham. So thanks for that. And it's really great to meet Artura and to be on the panel with her as well. Definitely my story is a Cinderella story because I'm an immigrant. My parents brought me to the US as a 6-year-old, and their idea was to do better for us, was to be able to afford education. They had heard it was free here.
Where were you from?
I'm from Colombia.
From Colombia.
Barranquilla, Colombia. And so we came, and it's the immigrant story. You know, my parents weren't able to work at what they did. My father was an entrepreneur and an electrician, and did, you know, a lot of the HVAC systems. Barranquilla is a hot city, so a lot of the air conditioning and all that. He couldn't do any of that here for a long time
because he had to be certified.
Language.
Oh, and language, sure.
Oh yeah, the language was a real barrier. And it was a barrier for me too, even at 6 years old. My mother says I cried every day for 2 years because I couldn't do the homework. I wanted to do it right. Yeah. So it took a while. And many times, students that come with an immigrant background like that, you know, don't surpass those challenges. You can become inhibited from not knowing the language well, that teasing that you suffer, any of those things. None of that seemed to get in my way. Every day I was told that my parents gave up their fun, their opportunity for us. And so eventually their dream became my dream.
Yes.
And which was to succeed. Like most parents, they wanted their kids to be doctors. That wasn't going to happen with me, but it did enable me to set lofty goals. But I knew I had to learn how do you get into school, like college, and all these things that were not ingrained because neither of my parents went to college here or there. So I had to learn it, and we became 5 kids. Wow. 3 of us migrated, and it was just a struggle. You know, they didn't own a home for a while, and then they did, but you know, all the immigrant hardships. That's why, you know, I relate very much to some of the things that are going on at the border, because it could have been us. It could have been that my brothers, you know, don't come with their papers, and then we could have been separated. We could, you know, there's all these things. Now, in 1965, immigration rules were relaxed to allow people, not Europeans, to come in with documentation, and my parents took advantage of that. So I was a good student. I heard this every day and I wanted to help my parents.
Yeah.
And that opened up being a good student and being very active in activities. Somebody had said that to get into college, you had to do activities. I wasn't an athlete, so I participated in other things. I did get into Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. I picked
Wow.
Harvard. I studied economics, and I've done capital markets since I graduated from Harvard. I did my MBA at night at U of C when I married. I didn't go back to Harvard Business School, but I've been focused. Capital markets were so hard,
Yeah.
and I guess it was like learning English. So I felt like I wanted to master it. And it is such a challenging field. It moves in unexpected ways. If people could predict the capital markets, you know what they say, they'd all be millionaires. But you
Is
know,
that what
it
they
has its
say?
own, right. I would say that
Mhm.
it has its own ebb and flow. And I love the capital markets. And so I've stayed attuned to that. But a career in finance has offered me many opportunities.
Wow.
And we can talk more about some of those next.
Wow. Tora, I could just listen to her all day. How about
For
you?
sure, by all means, by all means. I knew that would happen. And we thank you so much for being such a phenomenal advocate and such a tremendous role model. I mean, in all aspects.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
thank you.
Oh, we got phones. That's good. People are busy.
Always happens. Hey,
Of
sorry.
course. No, mine may do that too. So I apologize in advance. And so, Adela, literally just hearing your story, it brings things that we, or hear or read about on the news that are happening, to reality of why it's so important to hear from people who have succeeded like you have. So, speaking of the Wyndham board, that's where we know each other from. And Artura, do not worry if your phone rings. It doesn't matter. We
I'm
just know
sorry
we
about
know you're
that.
busy. You got to get a $16 million contract now.
That's okay. Sorry.
No problem. And so Wyndham International is looking for someone to head or to at least be on the audit committee. I think you ended up on the audit committee. Is that correct?
No, to chair it. They
To
were
chair
looking
it.
for a chair of the
Got
audit
it.
committee.
Okay. So you chaired the audit committee, and it was, how did that go? What was the process like in terms of getting a board seat? I know Cindy Burrell was from Chicago, was very instrumental in helping you, or helping find you
Yeah.
for Wyndham to interview
Yeah.
you.
Well, I think because this is the Cinderella to CEO program, I should
Mhm.
say this. In my dreams, I wanted one day to run a company. And when I was in, college and maybe late high school, I remember thinking, okay, well, I have to learn and because one day I could run IBM. Why IBM? Well, I did a lot of typing, and that's when the IBM Selectric was coming out. That was like the change coming to the world,
Right.
that you could, it was a Selectric and meant it could correct itself. That was like amazing, and you could go faster.
Right.
So I had that vision about running a company. And I had already served on several small, what are called closed-end boards.
Mhm.
And then, yes, fortunately at Wyndham, the Women on Their Way program wasn't just about the customers, that women in business. It was an integrated program, which I think, Cary, that you
Yes.
ran,
Yes.
that it considered the role of women throughout the company, and how do we make the whole, how do we think about women first?
And it worked.
Yes, and in that process, I think you guys identified that the board should have a woman, and there had been a woman on the board before me, and I think she served or was chair of the audit committee. When I came on, there was no woman.
Yes. I
At
think we
that
talked
moment.
about that. Yeah, that it was somebody internal at the time.
Okay.
That was on that. So, related to a company, the Trammell Crow company that
An
had.
insider,
Yeah.
but she wasn't there when I came.
Mhm.
But Cindy got the assignment because why you wanted a woman on for the board, and you gave the assignment to a woman.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and she had her business of finding, and she's a pioneer in terms of trying to bring diversity to boards.
Great.
And she approached me about, did I know someone for that? And I looked at it and I said, oh, I could do this. They have operations. They wanted someone, it might have indicated something about Latin America, because we had all those hotels
Yes,
in,
in the Caribbean.
in the Caribbean,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody that could run an audit committee. And so I remember taking the financial statements. For 11 years, I was an investment banker executive at Smith Barney, doing corporate finance. And that's what I did every day. I opened up financial statements and I determined, okay, this company, we should talk to them about doing a stock offering. And this one, we should try to do a private placement of debt. And that one, we could sell that company to somebody. I mean, like that. Every
Nice.
company, we analyzed their finances that way. So when I opened this financial statement, I knew exactly where it was headed, how it was positioned in the markets, what it would need to
Gosh.
expand and raise capital.
Wow.
And when Fred Kleisner, the CEO and the general counsel, interviewed me, I mean, I understood the balance sheet. I didn't, it was just, they were very comfortable immediately.
Yeah, which is really tells you something, doesn't it? It's like maybe the perception was, oh yeah, we'll interview 3 women, see how it goes, or whatever the number was that they ended up interviewing, and you blew them away. I know you did because Fred told me, and he was the CEO at the time, and then you went on to chair the audit committee, and it was a tough job, wasn't it? I mean,
It was very tough because who knew that's when the some new Sarbanes-Oxley
oh yeah,
regulations were imposed on how corporate governance related to audit practices and internal controls were to be implemented. And all of that came through the audit committee.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to develop an infrastructure, and we're talking about internal controls on a company with what was Wyndham then, 20,000 employees.
Yes, at least.
Over 100 properties. Making sure that all of those properties and all of that infrastructure followed the tenets of best practices put out by Sarbanes-Oxley, was an effort, but it was a great effort, and it resulted in Fred also, became very, very involved in this, and now I see he serves as chair of several audit committees, and so it was great.
So you taught him everything he knows.
No, we learned together, and but I think as women, it's important to take the myth and fear of numbers away. You have to get comfortable with numbers. Even if you're a creative person, you have to know what it costs, what it can bring in. You have to, at even a basic level, be very comfortable with this. Capital markets is an area of expertise. You don't need to have that. But I would say that it's really valuable, and I don't regret for 1 minute that I was challenged by these capital markets, that I taught myself to understand this. And it wasn't always easy. I remember long periods working 7 days a week for weeks at a time, months, because you were working on a deal, and deals have their own cadence and their own life, and you have to keep up. And I even though it was painful, I now, have gratitude, because it did open that marvelous opportunity to serve on that and many other boards, and in a way to really reach that dream of running a company. But, sitting around with my parents and thinking about this then, we didn't know anything about boards and serving on boards. But the CEO reports to the board. And so you have oversight over the management of this company, the execution of the vision and the strategic plan. So it's another way of running a company.
Sure.
And so I feel a lot of gratification for that, that I was given the opportunity, even though, along the way, many other opportunities were closed to me. Like I never would have been able to really run IBM the way I thought. But I did have that wonderful opportunity, and now I sit on the board of, a fabulous banking institution in the Midwest, BMO Financial Corp, BMO Harris Bank, with 15,000 employees, 500 plus branches, and I can sit at the table where a lot of decisions that affect women at all levels and diversity at all levels, and it's exciting.
Well, that's what I like about you is that you're approachable, you speak up, you're going to tell it like it is in a way that people hear it. I mean, I think you're savvy enough. You're very savvy in that, the way you might tell us or give us the truth, it's not off-putting.
I've got
And
a question about that too.
yeah,
Is that,
talk
as
about
you
it.
mentioned
Okay,
that you
go
talk
for it.
about those dreams and those visions, and I have a bucket list like that. I have this dream and this vision of scaling our company to a level that most people would not dream of, and that's just how I think. And I wanted to be able to attract some senior level management to come in here and help me do that. That would hopefully have that strategic Harvard MBA type background. But anyway, and then to continue to invest in the technology so we can automate and innovate. But, and we're talking about the possibility of looking at venture capital. What do you recommend? That's not using an audience that we're invited into and always understanding, so that's part of that. What do you recommend to be the first steps for a small and medium-sized business to do to approach VC funding? What do you
Well,
recommend?
it's so great that you're asking me this, and this has the lack of access to that capital has been a major hindrance for Latinos and other communities, diverse communities. We haven't accessed venture capital, private equity. We're like, I
We
don't
don't
know,
even
it's
know
not even.
how. We're not in that environment. That's right.
There's a concept of what's significant, what you have to disclose in a financial statement, and generally that standard is above 5%. You would never have to disclose what the participation of minority founders has been, because it's been de minimis. And so it was so exciting. I sold my business, and in 2019, the deal, all the arrangements ended.
And what
And
did what that was a financial
PT
consulting company?
Advisory, the financial consulting firm that, I mean, we did over 125, 140 billion of transactions, including for New York City and the state of Connecticut and all the major municipalities in Illinois. And transactions that were multi-billion dollars on a regular basis. And, when the state of Illinois needed to do a very important transaction, $6 billion, they asked me to be the one to help coordinate it and bring it forward at the lowest cost possible. That was the business that I developed.
Congratulations.
And
Really,
thanks.
really.
But it was so exciting to have the opportunity to work with other professionals that felt like me, that, hey, why are we falling behind? Why is it that our businesses don't scale? And so I loved it that you asked that, Artura. How do we scale a business? Well, we don't scale it because, first of all, think about it. You have an idea and you need some seed capital for it. But, a lot of your money is tied up in, maybe your retirement plans, your 401ks. There's a penalty to use it. Maybe you don't have an insurance policy that has a cash value that you could use. That's a great tool, I always find. And we don't really have the friends and relatives that are
No.
going to drop $50,000 for an idea that their niece, or we don't have that.
No.
So we have an idea, we struggle to put it together, and let's just say it's a storefront, eating or retail establishment. It's maybe a great concept, but in America, that concept could scale. First of all, there could be 6 of them in your city, and then you take it from Dallas to, the other cities, and then suddenly you have 50 in Texas. But
Yeah.
what do you need for that?
Yeah.
You need to be able to absorb losses for the initial ramp up,
That's right.
and that's done with capital.
Right.
But if you don't have the experience of how do you put this idea together, how do you scale your plan of what you have now, your 50 million contracts, where else? What are the vendors? What are the other government entities that you haven't reached yet, but that you could, if you could hire 2 people
That's
to,
right.
how do you put all that together and present it to a venture capital group and raise $1 million or 2 or 3?
That's right.
Well, that experience that we lack affects our ability to build the businesses in a way that others are doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We right now have a pipeline that we diversified our base into the pharmaceutical big pharma. We're
Okay.
onboarding J&J in January. We're taking on 69 universities in the state of New York universities. We have Pfizer, we have all these BMSs, but then I can't do it by myself. You know what I mean? And then I'm not in that forum to understand the dialogue and what it takes to put this together and trying to run the business. And, and it's where it gets, you just, and then you can't trust. You go into and you think you might be somewhere that somebody can help you understand what VC is, and you could get eaten alive. What I mean?
Well, so with these other professionals that are, a lot of them are in tech, and we want to make a difference, and so we decided that we would build the group. Now it's over 50 members, and they're not all Latinos. No, this is, if anybody that cares about advancing economic opportunity for Latinos and believes in capitalism the way we do, can be a member. And then you commit to investing $20,000, $30,000 a year. We have pitch nights, and we show you 3 or 4 great ideas every time. And then we pull our money together, and if it's $250 plus $1,000, we create a company for that, and a corporation, and that corporation invests in that startup. Wow. That startup already has found a lead investor. It's probably a venture capital firm that can spend a lot more resources doing the due diligence. We're all volunteers, so while we do it, we want to see a lead there that will invest the $1 million or the $500,000 to lead. What I found now that we've raised this kind of money for several companies now, including one that was featured in the Wall Street Journal recently.
That was a great article.
Yeah, Canela TV. What I found is that now we've been building bridges with other venture capitalists and other angel funds, and we can help them reach like the first $1 million through our resources.
Wow.
So like you say, well, you don't trust, okay, but we can help you. And I established a relationship with the CEO. There's a young woman, she's 38 or so, and it's all been on Zoom. She saw something about Angeles investors, and she sent me I think a LinkedIn saying, well, I'm the next Netflix.
I know that's right.
And she is.
She is.
That's great.
Tell the audience about this company and her.
Please share it.
Well, it's streaming, media streaming. So it is like Netflix, except it's not a membership protocol. It's ad driven so that it can be free to the user,
Wow.
because that's more
Concept.
attractive in our community.
It's a concept.
Yes. Yes, the subscription is more attractive to the venture capitalists,
Right.
but it's not attractive to the
To the
community
customer.
because we don't have such extensive usage of credit cards. It turns out that we have less than 50% that don't have a steady credit card. So without a steady credit card, that subscription, isn't going to last.
That's right.
So here it's free. You got to watch some ads when you're, in the midst of your favorite programs. But she's offering programming from all over Latin America.
Wow.
Mexico, Colombia, Argentina. It's just so exciting. And I'm so excited for her. She raised $3 million in her first round.
Ooh.
And there it is on Wall Street Journal. I've worked in.
That is wonderful.
It's
What a
wonderful.
great story.
Yeah, I've worked in capital markets for 40 years, but this gets the attention of the Wall Street Journal. And I am so proud of that.
And just
Yes.
think about too that she had somewhere like you to go. You know what I mean? And that's the difference between having someone like you now that it's not
Exactly.
typical for
And
us.
there's a lot of us out there trying
Yeah.
to make a difference. And and not just the other board members on the board of Angeles, women, because there's Emma Rodriguez Ayala and Bernadette. She's also on the board, former executive, and now a board member of Denny's.
Wow.
But it's not just them. Everyone, the men and women on this board, we are committed to making a difference for men and women, because we recognize that women have been the least served by
right.
opportunities for capital.
Wow, that's
And
wonderful.
yet they have great ideas.
And yeah,
So-
we've all lost out because of the lack of diversity
That's right.
in,
That's right.
in that
The
way.
disproportionate amount of funding does not come to us,
No.
excess.
So we're
funding.
teaming up with African American angel groups and African American venture capital groups because we're in this together.
All of it.
The struggle is the same.
It is.
And,
Across the board.
and together maybe we can make more of a difference.
Yes. Did Adela answer your question, Arturo? Or do you
Yes,
have
she did, by all means, and then even gave a case study that's a successful one. Yeah, that's the
Exactly.
exciting part. And then again, I'm so happy that you even invited me, Cary, and that she would be the person that's here today, because that's been something that's burning. You have those dreams, you have those desires, and you just don't know where to go, and then again, because the general access is not like us, then you don't know if you can trust that somebody's going to let you in, because you don't have the financial background and the wherewithal to know how to even structure them. So I'm grateful. Thank you so much.
And being approachable is so
Oh, yeah.
so vital, I think. I think finding our voices to be able to ask, what we need to ask in order to grow successful businesses, and or in the corporate world, you may be in charge or connected into the board members that you're working with. That's a good question, I think, too, Adela. Are you, as a board member, interacting like you did at Wyndham a little bit, at least, with some of us in the corporate structure, or is it usually just with the board and just with the CEO? Just wondered.
Well, it's not possible to be on a board and not interact with the senior executives. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the C-suite is in the boardroom, and I was very honored that soon after joining the board of BMO, I think it was the women's group that hosted, either the women's group or the Latino group or all together. They hosted a panel interviewing me,
Great.
and lots of the local employees of BMO could come because they see that I participate in these activities. I'm generally invited, used to be before
Yeah.
the pandemic,
Yeah.
in a lot of the special events that are for our employees. But what I can do in the boardroom and what other women can do is we can ask, hey, how deep is the bench?
Good
How
question.
deep is the bench in terms of representation of women and others? Because you see, if you have potential candidates, you can change the face of leadership.
Right.
And what are we doing to retain women? That's a big problem in banking, not just with BMO, who does a fabulous job. I mean, they're just leaders in that area, but everywhere, because women, our career path is different. We have other competing interests that makes our intensity of time just a little bit different. Whether it is that we take time off, if you can afford that, or, just, I couldn't travel after 10 years of doing corporate finance with 3 little children. I couldn't travel the way I had been doing it before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
that
what'd
was
you do?
changed.
What you just did
Well,
you?
I really thought I was going to take a couple of years off. Well, the kids, I had 3 under 5. And so that's really what I told my husband. I said, okay, well, it's a downturn in the market. I'm going to get out and I'm going to stay home for a while. And I remember he said, oh, you're not going to like that. And I remember my father saying, you're too creative. You wouldn't like that. And I thought, oh, yeah, no, I'm going to like it. But within 6 months, someone had the idea. That was my first business.
You stir
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh, that was good.
But I think that first of all, companies have to accommodate. Otherwise, we're losing too much talent. I mean, the majority of college graduates now are women.
Yeah.
And almost in every profession, there's parity. But we can't not invest in these women because they're talent.
Yes.
And diversity has been proven to create better results. When you have different points of view, it's like a prism, not a prison, a prism where
Crystal.
there's all these different perspectives. That's very important when you're trying to solve substantial problems, to have this diversity of perspective. But for a large company that makes the investment early to bring on, diverse employees, the challenge then is retention and then succession.
Right.
How do they fit in the succession plan? And that's very individualized, but that's all important. Otherwise, we won't get the best talent.
Yes. And as an individual, as someone who is looking at, whether they're mid-career or just starting out or even more experienced, I know serving on nonprofit boards is helpful just from the dynamics of things and building relationships and exuding your passion in the community of, how you show up. But what specifically, if in addition to nonprofit board service, and maybe there's something specific with that could be helpful to somebody listening today who is interested in serving on a board? What's a step they could take?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I want to underscore, I do think that nonprofit boards are very important.
Okay, good.
For process and functions, the network. If you're in a town like Chicago, I don't know what it's like in Dallas or some of the other places. Chicago, the civic model is business and nonprofit and government. They all interact.
Really?
Through many of these nonprofit boards or civic organizations and alliances. So by being a part of that, you get to interact with, the CEO of United.
That's right.
At a reception where I'm the CEO of my little consulting firm, but we're all in the room.
Yeah.
Because that's the model here. So the network is key.
Do you think, I'm sorry, real quickly, the Chicago Board of Trade, does that affect, that being in Chicago, has that put that, I guess, front and center in the city in terms of a factor of how everybody works together, the Chicago Board of Trade? Just curious.
I don't know about the Board of Trade. It's not so much about that.
Okay.
It's about it's about their civic model.
It's about the civic model.
And
Okay.
it's driven by, I think, the diversity, the ethnic diversity of the city.
That's awesome.
The city is like, it's a third Hispanic.
I think that has a lot to do with it.
20 or 25% Black.
Yeah.
And then it has, the largest population of Polish outside of Poland.
Wow.
And then it's sliced in the middle, and south side is the more ethnic groups of color, and the other side isn't. So I think early on, people realized to have a city thriving economically, you had to have people around the table. So it's a real opportunity.
It's a great city
for us to expand our network, the nonprofit.
Okay.
But then what I always say for getting on boards, you have to follow what you love to do, what your business is, and be very focused on that. And it's very hard to predict what board opportunity is coming. But I was known when Cindy was looking for candidates for Wyndham, I was known as a woman in finance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about calling myself a leader in finance, but you had a good reputation. I had my own business. I already served on other boards that were finance driven. I had taken companies public.
That's right.
I had done M&A. So
yeah.
If you have an expertise, whether it's marketing, when I think about Bernie Alestia, who's on the board of Angeles with me, she ran a major division of HBO.
Wow.
So she's a marketing powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, Denny's would want her on their board,
Yeah.
And to the nonprofit concept, she sits on the board of her alma mater, Brown. So I think that's very much a model, but expertise. Now, you can't start out saying, okay, I'm going to be an expert in marketing because that will get me on a board. No. You're going to be you love marketing. You want to excel. You want to, and then you're in that circle of, there's a webinar about marketing. Will you speak about this? Will you, you develop your, I don't really like the term, you develop your brand or you build your brand. It's more, I want to say, I don't know the right phrase because I'm not a marketer, but I call it developing expertise and being known for that. I didn't have money to advertise AC Advisory.
Right.
I didn't have it. I couldn't put an ad in Cranes saying, I just did the last deal. Here's the tombstone for it. I couldn't afford that. Was $15,000. But if I was asked to speak to, women employed or whatever it was, I had the time to do that. That was how I financed the exposure that all businesses need.
You got out, made the relationship, built the relationships, and that
the credibility. Credibility.
Okay. Yes,
that
of course.
In my arena too, is that never on the boards at Choose Excel, but part of participating in some of the chamber events and some of the activities and being known in the associations, and again the participation, as she mentioned, suiting up and showing up. That then I started to participate in the Hispanic Chamber. They were one of the most progressive in the city, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and it does give you that access to the corporates and the CEOs and this. But one of the other things that I found too, Cary, is because of our certifications that, we are certified disabled. We have the others that we sit on the boards for the Diversity Alliance for Science. And then that's how we meet all the relationships with the pharmaceutical companies.
Perfect.
You become first name basis with the people because they know that your credibility is established through the visibility of participating. Yeah. So, but never at the heights that you are, but again, you are the trailblazer. And, I wanted to just chime in on one other thing, that not only are you such an amazing woman who's been a pioneer and trailblazer and a role model for us, that has led in a dominated male non-minority industry, but you raised daughters that have gone to Harvard. You know what I mean? You know, it's like, come on, you know.
Three. Well, I won't discriminate. Harvard, Brown, and Duke.
Okay.
And they're all, in my eyes, equally challenging. But, you know, I think Cary had asked me initially to talk about, you know, what are some of the challenges? I have to say, yes, I had to learn English. Yes, I came from a family that didn't go to college. And so that's like, whoa, you know, if you don't know to take the SATs or to prepare for it, like we didn't have the funds anyway to pay for that course, to take to learn to take the SATs, all of that. But I have to say, I think that my career has been charmed. I don't think about the fact that while I worked for a decade in investment banking, the men were always lured to other positions on other banks. I was never, ever called to look at a job elsewhere. Most of the trajectory when you're in investment banking is you go on in-house to a company that's your client maybe or something like that, and you go through treasury or you do M&A in-house or you become the CFO. None of that was really open to me, but still I've achieved my dreams. So you have to be flexible, because there are things that you cannot be flexible about. I would say that in my personal life, yes, I have 3 daughters and I love them dearly and I've done the best that I could, but that's where the challenges have been for me. I became a widow 25 years ago at 37 years old. And that helped focus me too. It really explains to me why men are so focused, because when you are the primary
breadwinner
and supporter of your family, you're going to learn whatever you have to do that job and to move forward. It's not casual anymore.
No.
And that is something that, you know, I couldn't do anything about. There was no fix for his cancer, and he left us at 40 years old. And that, to me, that is the biggest hurdle that I've ever had. And not letting that keep me down and prevent me from reaching the dreams and the aspirations. And particularly at that point, I had to be the bridge for my daughters to have their dreams. That isn't fair. They didn't sign up for that.
That's right.
So how do I build them up so that they can achieve whatever it is that they want?
Wow.
Phenomenal.
Great mother. And role model to all of us.
I mean, seriously, really.
I do think there's something.
Business is fun. Business in that context, business is the fun part of my life. You know, it was something I could go to and hit successes. And, you know, I mean, what's a bad thing in business? You don't get the deal. Okay. Devastating, I know. But, you know, the next day you forgot about it. The next week you forgot about it. And you're on to your next deal.
That's right. Dilly.
Wow.
That's great.
Again, I always just think, I've got a couple of questions in the chat room. Artura, do you want to read them, or do you want me to read them?
It says, yes. Faye'd like to ask, who's invited into your inner circle and why? I think that's the first that I saw.
And then how do you develop trust with the funder who is being entrusted with your big idea? Like, I guess you have a big idea and somebody's agreed, an entity's agreed to give you funding. How do you entrust them? How do you feel trusting of them?
With this young woman, with Isabel, you know, we would talk regularly. And I assured her that I number one goal for me is to see her company advance. If we had an opportunity to invest in it, okay, that would be great, but that was secondary. The most important thing was helping her achieve her objectives with respect to that idea and that company that she so ably is building.
Right.
And I always do say that really is the goal. Yes, if we can invest in it and maybe down the road it becomes a source of profit, okay, that's an added benefit.
That's great. That's great.
But that's really what I want to see. That's more important to me, is that you, Artura, are able to advance and scale your business like you say.
Right.
I don't know that it's going to be through Angeles investors.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but maybe you need a larger line of credit. Maybe, and I just want to see you feel that you have reached the dreams that you have.
That dream.
And
That's great.
And I mean that. I mean
she
that.
does.
No, it's heartfelt. It comes across in your face.
I mean,
It does. We can see that.
Because you know what? If you help us women and others achieve this, there's going to be a time when my daughter is going to need something, and it's going to help them.
It's ironic when you said that visual came to me, that when you get that help, that I know God's going to help you get that some way, somehow. I'm not going to stop until we do, but then it's gonna, if the Lord's willing that I'm still here, I'll be able to help somebody else. I got that when you mentioned that I felt that impact. I never thought beyond that, because it was just trying to get to that dream, and then thinking of, wow, how you can go back and impact others, because nothing feels greater than seeing the look on somebody's face when they're trying so hard and they don't have access, and you're able to give them some level,
Even an idea of how to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can be altering.
Right.
Just
Okay,
listening.
Faye wanted to know who is invited to your inner circle and why.
I don't know about
Does
that.
that make
I'm
sense?
very open. I talk to, that.
Yeah.
It's not a new thing.
So inner circle doesn't have, I think people feel when it comes to money, especially in the big money, that it's a closed circle sometimes. And it probably is for, most people trying to break into it, unless you have the connections. And so what we hope to see more of, I think, and this being a perfect group, for ourselves to be open and available, to make ourselves available to people that we can help, and surround yourselves with people like that. Is that part of the answer? That's what I would.
Well, I love the board and the membership that we have at Angeles Investors. They're invigorating to me. They're experts in their areas. And, one of the objectives is, in addition to funding startups with some Latino DNA, it's also to find those ideas that are disruptive.
Yes.
And how are you most disruptive today? Well, digitally. That was always the plan before COVID. And guess what? COVID has made that time schedule of getting digital access
accelerated.
Like it happened already.
Yeah,
like if
that
you
was
didn't
yesterday.
do it, you're not in business now. So these startups that had that idea are doing very well.
Good.
And it's been a great time to be in the market trying to find these leaders in those fields. So I'm invigorated by everything I'm learning. All the people that are out there building businesses, because businesses is jobs. And I don't know if you're aware, but the number one source of new businesses and jobs are Latinas. That's just what it is. Or was prior to COVID. I mean, COVID has been a major hurdle because there weren't a lot of choices. You couldn't drop your kids off, at school, at daycare, anywhere. So I think it has changed the trajectory. You had to make a decision of who was going to stay home. I don't know what all the results are yet. None of us do. We don't know how much longer this is going to be. We don't know what the impact is going to be. But the Latina entrepreneur was responsible for the startup of more and more jobs in the economy before this happened.
That's incredible. And I'm so glad you pointed that out.
Yeah. So this is good business sense.
Yes.
Cindy Burrell has a question, said, in thinking about funding organization, how is it different from Hyde Park Angels, except for the focus on the Latinx business?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been able to find out too much about them. I've called them. One thing about the venture capital world, it's very collegial, because nobody is 100% the investor in a startup generally. So let's say a company needs $1 million. There's a lead, and he'll take 500. And then he'll team up with a few other venture capitalists or angels to fill out the other 500. But he's the lead, and maybe he'll sit on the board, or she, and it's put together that way. So there's an interest in being collegial, because you want to spread some of the risk by spreading the investment.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't been able to find out much about Hyde Park Angel, so I don't know. A lot of the other venture capitalists and angel groups, I call them, or someone in the group calls them, but them, I don't know. So
you'll
I
have
don't
to
think
follow up
I don't
with that,
think
Cindy.
it's relevant. I mean, I really don't.
Okay.
There's a lot of angel groups. That's just one of them.
And there's
they
one in
don't-
Texas. I mean, there's many, I'm sure, in Texas, like not a Latina one that I know of, but there is the Texas Women's Fund Ventures Fund. I don't know if you all know Whitney Martin. She was actually on our advisory board at Wyndham. But you all, guess what? It's come up to the hour. We only have a minute or so left. Is there anything else you all want to add, or tell people how to reach your ventures fund?
Yeah, I think we could put Angeles, because we have a screening process for the startups.
Is there
for the founders?
Is there a website? I should have looked this up and I didn't.
Yeah, it's www.angelesinvestors. So like Angeles, but we say Angeles, angelesinvestors.com. And when you go on the website, you sign in as a founder of the startup, and then we'll reach out and you tell us, what's some of the parameters of what we need to start looking into it. But I want to say thank you. And I want to say that I appreciate you taking the time to learn about me and to discuss with me opportunities for women that we care so deeply about. And I also want to say that I really do hope that 2021 will bring us health, good health to all of us and our families, that this will be over.
Yes.
Well
Thank
said.
you so much too for having the opportunity to meet you and speak with you. It's been an honor, the same.
Thank you. You're both Cinderella stories inspire me so much. And I think my wish for 2021 is to stay in touch with you both and to keep us posted on how we can help you. And you're already helping so many people just by the example that you lead. And we appreciate it. I know you're both on LinkedIn, and we can Google you whenever we want and read the article in the Wall Street Journal, which is fantastic. Yeah. And the worst part of the podcast is having to say goodbye. So I will, I'll just let you know that we're going to sign off now, and I'll be glad to sign off this year. I think all of us will. And I look forward to seeing you all in 2021.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bless, stay safe.
Thank you, Adela Cepeda and Artura Taylor. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.